Now, we have the first panel discussion of today. We have on the topic, blockchain security, a mainstream adoption, with moderator Charlie Tang, OTC trader of Genesis Block, and speakers Ed Garcia, head of APAC of Hedera Hashgraph, and speaker Richard Ma, CEO of Quantstamp. Please give it up for moderator and panelists.
Hi, good morning. I'm Charlie from Genesis Block. So thank you for joining the panel. We have two speakers, Edgar and Richard. So Richard Ma is the CEO of Quantstamp. He is a software engineer who builds trading softwares. So in 2016, I think he experienced the DAO hack, which millions of dollars was stolen because of a bug in a smart contract. That's why it inspired him to co-found Quantstamp, which is an automated smart contract audit protocol. And for Edgar, he came from a finance background. He's a bond trader. So he is now the head of Asia Pacific in Hedera Hashgraph. So he met the team in 2017, and then he is now building for the team in Asia. So we will have a presentation first from Edgar. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. So today we're going to talk about mainstream adoption of distributed ledger technology and what does it take. And before we even dive into that, I think it's helpful to first define what mainstream adoption is. So the way we define it is having a platform, a public ledger, where big multinational corporations and governments can build applications and mission-critical applications on top of. And if you can set that standard, then everybody else in the world will be able to build on this platform as well. Now we see the requirements for mainstream adoption in four main categories. You need high throughput performance. You just can't do very much with 5 to 20 transactions per second. The second piece is security. So if you want to be transacting if you expect to be transacting trillions of dollars over a network, you need to have the highest level of security possible. The third is stability. If you look at many of the public ledgers today, most of the major ones have experienced forks, and that has created instability for mainstream enterprises. And lastly, governance. What does governance for a platform for the mainstream look like, right? It certainly cannot be just a small group of developers making all the decisions. You need to have a diversified group of capable individuals or corporations coming together to govern the platform. So everything that we've built with Hedera Hashgraph is with these four categories in mind. So the Hashgraph consensus algorithm actually solves the first two issues, performance and security. So Hashgraph is a consensus algorithm invented by Dr. Lehman Baird, our chief scientist and co-founder. Lehman started working on this problem in 2012, and in 2015 had a breakthrough, and that breakthrough is what we now call the Hashgraph consensus algorithm. We're able to hit speeds of over 100,000 transactions per second in our cryptocurrency transactions with seconds of consensus latency, meaning the entire network comes to an agreement with 100% finality within seconds. The second piece is security. Hashgraph achieves the highest level of security possible in distributed consensus. This level of security called ABFT, or asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance. And this has been validated by third parties, including a Carnegie Mellon computer science professor using computer checks. And we are resilient to security attacks that other platforms are just not resilient to. Next is stability. So because of the open source nature of many of the public ledgers, like I said, they've all experienced forks, or the major ones have. And so how do we provide stability to a platform but still have the open innovation that open source provides. And so what we're doing is, Hashgraph is a patented technology. The patents were awarded in 2016. And so what we're doing there is, at version 1 of the network, we're going to publish the entire source code with full transparency for anyone to see, because we believe that that transparency is important for trust, and that's ultimately what we're building here. But because of the patent and other technical controls, we're able to prevent forking of the network, so that there is stability to the platform, so that a business manager at a multinational corporation that's considering to invest a few $1 million to build a distributed application on Hedera, they can be comfortable that this platform will be stable. If you look at the other a major use case that we expect for public ledgers, which is asset tokenization, you don't want to have a scenario where a platform forks and you have two sets of tokens trying to claim ownership on the same asset, right? That's chaotic. So we're using the patent to solve this stability issue. And lastly, for governance, what does governance look like for a platform for the mainstream? We're putting together a council of up to 39 of the largest corporations from around the world, geo-distributed across the globe and across as many as 18 different industry verticals. They will stand up the initial nodes on the network. However, at scale, we expect thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of nodes, of consensus nodes on the network. So it's what we call an open consensus permission governance platform. And in addition to distribution by geography and industry, this governance is also distributed by time, in that all of our governing council members have term limits of 3 years, and they can serve no more than 2 consecutive terms at a time. 2 weeks ago, we announced the initial group of 5 governing council members. They are Deutsche Telekom, largest telco in Europe, DLA Piper, one of the largest law firms globally. Magazine Luiza is one of the largest retail companies in South America. Nomura is one of the largest financial institutions in Japan. Swisscom is the largest telco in Switzerland. And we will continue to announce council members over the next few months. And there we have it. So performance, security, stability, and governance to build a platform for the mainstream. So I have a quick video that will touch on all these different sections. Can we play the video, please?
We are in the dawn of a new decentralized era, where people who don't know or trust each other can securely collaborate and transact online without the need for an intermediary. For distributed ledgers to go mainstream and enable this vision, there are 4 issues that must be addressed: speed, security, stability, and governance. Hedera Hashgraph is the enterprise-grade public network that addresses these challenges. The underlying Hashgraph consensus algorithm offers speed and scalability, fair ordering, and best-in-class security for mission-critical applications. Hedera is a platform built on and built for trust.
You need a governing concept. And because blockchain systems are about trust, well, somebody has to set the standard for trust.
Hedera aims to achieve a truly decentralized governance model. The Hedera Governing Council is an elected group of highly diversified, leading global organizations committed to supporting the development and growth of the Hedera public network.
In our point of view, the game changer in Hedera's governance approach is the diversity of its members.
Comprised of the world's most innovative companies across different industries and geographies, the Hedera Governing Council will chart the path for the Hedera platform and public network. Their responsibilities include hosting and maintaining initial network nodes, establishing a governance framework for global markets, and overseeing the software run by hundreds of thousands of nodes at scale. and for the overall direction of the Hedera platform's codebase.
We decided to join Hedera Hashgraph, but not only join, but being a counselor on the Hedera Hashgraph network, because it's important for us to influence the future roadmap.
The Governing Council will play a crucial role for this emerging sector, creating the best practices and guidelines that will serve the industry for decades to come.
But we're all going to be able to get together and share that sort of global best practice knowledge on a series of interesting and challenging questions about the future of this technology and how we can help frame a governance around it.
Hedera Hashgraph goes beyond blockchain with a fast, fair and secure distributed public ledger governed by the world's leading enterprises and made for developers, creating a trusted and empowered digital future for all. What future will you build?
So now it will be Richard's turn to have his presentation.
Oh, great. Oh. I think it doesn't sync. Oh, there we go. Hey, so really appreciate everyone for being here today. So I'm Richard Ma, the CEO of QuantStamp. And so we do automated blockchain security auditing. And I want to talk about a trend that we're still seeing. So currently, actually, the smart contracts are still growing exponentially. So when I started the company in June of 2017, there were about 300,000 smart contracts. And by the time that the major ICO boom took off, there were more than 2 million smart contracts. And today, there's actually more than 12 million smart contracts in the world. So even throughout this time, you can see that it's still going at an exponential rate. And the major problem with smart contracts is that while the blockchain is secure, so for example, Hashgraph's consensus algorithm, the layer that's built on top of the consensus algorithm, which is providing all this additional functionality, is not necessarily secure. So for example, while transactions on Hashgraph, they're finalized within seconds, the EVM-based smart contracts still could have lots of bugs. In the last 2 years alone, there's been about $334 million worth of smart contract hacks. So this is one of the reasons I actually started the company. And currently, the way that you audit this code is slow and manual. So as you can imagine, there's very few experts in the world who understand how to audit this new type of code. And what QuantStamp is building is a faster, more automated, and scalable solution. And you know what? Customers love us. So since we started the company, we've had over 60 B2B customers. We have another 20 in the backlog. And we've audited over $500 million worth of smart contracts for some of the world's largest projects. So some of our recent projects has been SharesPost, which is a major listing company in the US for secondary equities. Also Gumi, which is a large publicly traded Japanese company. Also eToro, the stock brokerage, as well as crypto native companies like Chainlink, which does oracles. And also Crypto.com, our friends here in Hong Kong who's issuing a crypto credit card that we're really happy to work with. And we're also backed by some of the strongest names from the investment space. So we're actually a Y Combinator company from Silicon Valley. And recently, we actually closed a round of funding from Digital Garage and also Nomura Holdings, the largest investment bank in Japan, as well as TransLink and Pioneer Fund. Also, we work with universities. So we've given grants to MIT University as well as NUS. And recently, we've been working with the World Economic Forum as well. We love helping awesome businesses that execute. So one of the reasons I'm actually here in Hong Kong is that Crypto.com, they're releasing the next version of their wallet with their credit card. And we were really happy to do the auditing on that.
And in terms of our products, so we do audit certification. So if you go to like certificate.quantstamp.com/crypto.com, you'll see that we provide hosted certificates for these companies so that any of their customers can verify that the code they're actually using is safe. And this is becoming really important in an age where we don't necessarily want to trust big companies with our data or with our money, right? So recently there's been a lot of issues, for example, with large companies like Facebook and Equifax, either with the way that they're treating your data security, for example, getting hacked, or with the way that they're managing your data, so selling it to third parties. And we're able to verify this because logic in smart contracts is programmatic and it doesn't change after it's deployed. So we can say with certainty that yes, you're going to be safe. So another product we're offering is the security scan. So this is actually powered by QSP, and it provides an enterprise-grade solution to do multiple type of analysis on new code that's being deployed. So we've launched a testnet in March of 2018, and we launched a mainnet in August of 2018, and we have a new V2 coming out soon. Another product we're offering is enterprise security monitoring. So for a lot of companies that actually deploy to mainnet, finding that continuous security is really important because as they try to onboard hundreds of thousands and eventually millions of users, there's going to be lots of new type of attacks that are possible. And this product allows those companies on every single new block to check for these type of attacks. And we've been getting really good feedback from our customers on this. One new thing we're working on is we actually filed a patent for smart contract assurance so that in addition to monitoring, you can also guarantee the economic value from those new deployed smart contracts. And this is going to be a really big trend as we have more and more consumer apps that are getting deployed this year and next year. And one thing we're also really proud of is that we're auditing layer 2 scaling. So in addition to consensus algorithms that are doing layer 1, like sharding or DAGs, there's also additional type of algorithms like Plasma and the new beacon chain implementation from ETH 2.0. So this is one of the public reports that we've issued for Omise Go for their Plasma MVP. And we've been delivering our product roadmap. So recently we're actually publishing a new book. It's the first book on fundamentals of smart contract security, and with a foreword written by a Japanese soccer player, Keisuke Honda, who's doing a lot of work kind of in that space as well. So you should be able to buy it on Amazon in a month or two. And we can do all this because we have an experienced team. So I'm a former Wall Street quant developer. Our CTO is a formal verification expert. And we have a team of PhDs with over 900 Google Scholar citations. And our senior team is from Visa and Facebook and Amazon. And our head of APAC is actually was a VP at Goldman Sachs. So, and in terms of traction, we've audited over $500 million worth of projects with 60 B2B customers. We have some of our happy customers here in the audience today. And we're happy to provide this rich product offering so that over the long-term rise of the smart contract industry, we're able to help keep everyone safe. So we feel we're well positioned for that type of future. So that's my presentation. So feel free to stay up to date. Follow us on Twitter and also our YouTube at Quantstamp HQ. Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard and Edgar, for the presentation. So I will ask my first question, and it will be regarding mainstream adoption. So you guys have been dealing with some big enterprise. So what is the biggest obstacles for them to start using blockchain? Yeah.
Yeah, so for some of our enterprise clients, the biggest obstacle that they have is to have a coherent blockchain strategy. So often one of the first questions I get from the senior team at these enterprises is like, what should our blockchain strategy be? and what type of products make sense to build on blockchain. And this is actually quite a nuanced question because it also involves what type of ledger you should use. So for example, like Hedera is targeting these large enterprises that have scalability and security concerns. But some enterprises, they also want to build on a public ledger, like Ethereum. So there's lots of trade-offs when they're deciding this. And most of the leadership teams at these companies, they don't have a sophisticated understanding yet of this technology. So that's a really major challenge. And then the other challenge is with products that reach production, we see it with a lot of clients that they'll reach this kind of proof of concept phase where they actually built something pretty amazing. And getting it from that proof of concept phase where it's only seen inside the company to being used by their customers, that is a major challenge because they need to get stakeholders from different parts of their company, for example, their business department, sales, engineering, and the senior leadership to agree to push that product onto their customers. So we see a lot of projects that are in that kind of proof of concept stage right now.
Cool. Yeah, from our perspective, well, first of all, Hedera Hashgraph is a public ledger. It's not a permission ledger in that anyone at scale, anyone can run a node on the network. As far as the enterprise conversations that we've been having, we find that it's quite different from the startup community that we're engaging with as well. So the startup community cares more about the technology and the features of the Hedera Hashgraph platform. The big enterprises care more about use cases. They say, okay, they'll tell us your technology is great, but what can I use your technology for to solve pain points in our businesses, right? So with a lot of our enterprise conversations, we dive a lot into the use cases with them. And as far as obstacles, it's the main ones that I mentioned before: performance, security, stability, and governance. And that's why we are attracting these enterprises onto the platform, because we're able to solve these obstacles for them.
Yeah, that's cool. So many companies are looking for some application to use blockchain. And I would like to also talk about security, as Richard has experienced the DAO hack. So I will ask, what if the hack is happening again? So how can Hedera or how can Quantstamp help with it?
Yeah, sure. So I guess to follow on from the enterprise discussion, that's a major concern for big companies who are entering the space. So there's some companies in the space that have actually done really well. So some of our clients in the automotive industry, they've really kind of found the right balance there in terms of how they want to build so it's secure. And also in the gaming industry. So one of our clients, Gumi, they're building this kind of new game platform called Financy. And I think that the approach they've been taking is actually starting from a permissioned private ledger first. So often they'll actually build the full product on a permissioned private ledger on a test network, and then rolling that out into a permissioned public network so that they still have control over the code. And they can, for example, if an engineer at the company makes a mistake and puts some sensitive data, they can reverse the data. So that's basically a really major blocker when different people, stakeholders, are trying to decide. And then the idea, I think, is that over time, as they move from this private permission setting to a public permission setting, eventually they'll get to a public permissionless setting. So some of the companies I've seen do this well in the space is actually Line. So as you know, Line, they've been building a lot of interesting applications, and they're starting from kind of this permissioned setting. Another company I think that's doing this really well is actually Kakao. So they've also been starting with their GroundX project and kind of trying to get actual applications to build. And in terms of security, it's just as a security expert, it's a lot harder to secure a permissionless network because you have attacks that can come from layer 1, but also from the application layer. And when we help companies, we have to consider both. So for really big companies like Facebook that are now trying to roll out their own coin, this is going to be a major issue that they have to tackle. And I think they're going to tackle it the same way, which is to start from a permission setting, try to have like a controlled amount of economic value at the start, and then slowly do a phased rollout.
Yeah, that makes sense for them to use permission ledger first. So it's similar to what Hashgraph is doing. It was a permission ledger, and now we have Hedera. So can you talk about a bit about the governing model? So how can Hedera tackle the hacks or some bug on smart contracts?
From a governance standpoint,
Yeah.
or from a technology standpoint?
I would say governance.
Well, I think from a, if we're talking about hacks, then it really should start from the technology side of things, and obviously the governing body does have a role to play in making sure that that the technology is built up to the highest security standards as possible. And obviously we have big multinational corporations with very high enterprise-grade security standards that they want to influence the Hedera Hashgraph platform with, but perhaps to like Richard has mentioned, there are the application layer security, which I think a service like QuantStamp makes a lot of sense. Our focus is really on that protocol layer, and from a security standpoint, it starts with our consensus algorithm, and we follow a proof of stake model. So in the initial years of the network, we expect that the council members will stake majority of the tokens on the network to ensure that the network comes to consensus. And over time, we will open up the distribution of those tokens to the public. Essentially, as it becomes more distributed and if it becomes more valuable, it becomes practically impossible for any attacker to be able to acquire enough tokens to be able to disrupt the network.
Yeah, I understood, yeah. So another example for me is the EOS. So how do they tackle those hacks? Maybe they will have some consensus into those 21 BP that they can solve those problems. Do you think it's a good solution or an hard fork will be better?
Well, as you know, recently EOS had a big problem with one of their block producers not reacting in enough time to reverse a hack. So I think for that one, it was about $2 million that was lost because, this liveliness issue. So I think that, these models, they require all the participants to be really active. And so, for example, on EOS, they actually have a time period to respond. So the purpose of that time period is to make sure everyone responds in time. But still, you just have these type of rare events where, for example, someone is offline. And so I think that whatever consensus model that will eventually be used for large commercial applications, they have more formal guarantees instead of these probabilistic guarantees that the important decision makers are going to be online, or somehow the software enforces this protocol, and there doesn't need to be a human in the loop for these important decisions. So I think it's still a work in progress, and we're kind of in the first inning of this development, this like Cambrian explosion of layer 1 strategies. So I think that over time we'll get to that more formal type of proof.
I don't want to speak too much about the EOS situation, but I think what's important here is that from both a technology and a governance standpoint, it's important to set these in place early on so that a situation like what occurred just isn't possible, right?
Yeah. So I do agree that it's important to get those things done in the first place, so that to prevent those problems. So I only have 1 minute left. So is there anything you would like to add to the security standpoint or adoption?
No, nothing in particular, but I guess Richard and I will be around after this, so feel free to come reach out to us.
Yeah, so thank you, Richard and Edgar, for your sharing. So give a hand to them. Thank you.
No, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for our panelists on blockstream security and mainstream adoption. Woo! Okay.